Harry?
Thank you, Chair. The Medicine Hat Police Service and its Police Commission honor and acknowledge that we are situated on both Treaty 7 and Treaty 4 territory, which are the traditional lands of the Siksika Blackfoot, the Kainai Blood, the Piikani Pagan, the Stoney Nakoda, and Tsuut'ina Sarsi, as well as the Cree, the Sioux, and the Saulteaux bands of the Ojibwa peoples. We also acknowledge that we are on the traditional homelands of the Métis Nation. I'll now ask any commission member to advise the chair if they have any perceived or known conflicts of interest as per the items listed in the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, moving on to the agenda. I'm sorry. Yes, the agenda. There's going to be a couple of changes here. 10A, that presentation will no longer happen today. The individual is not available to make the presentation, so we'll schedule it to another time. And then we're going to move 7A up to just after the minutes. It'll kind of be 4B thing here. So let's, are there any other additions or to the agenda? Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept? Marco? Accept the agenda with the corrections. A seconder. Terry. All in favor? Carried. Minutes, the June 21st meeting of the last open meeting. Are there any errors or omissions on the minutes or in the minutes? Seeing none, a motion to accept it. Marco, second it. Miles. All in favor? Carried. Okay, the chief is now going to take over with his part of the agenda. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just ask Constable Bev Kennedy to come on up, and I'll put her on the stand up here in the hot seat for a bit while I explain things. And welcome to Bev, and thank you for coming, Bev. Appreciate it. So for the commission, you have heard this story once before when we had some citizens in here for the same event. So on March 30th this year, MHPS received a number of 911 calls of someone on the outside of the Allowance Ave overpass. As the calls came in, some citizens in our city and that you've spoken to here before, they held on to the woman that was on the outside of the railing that was suicidal, intending to jump off the overpass. As the event unfolded, Constable Kennedy attended the event, and when she arrived, as the citizens held on to this gal, Bev went into action, and she actually pulled this gal straight over the rail. So the rail is probably 4.5 to 5 feet high. It's cement. It's a difficult thing to do. I can tell you, when our TAC folks, if they were involved in something like that, it's called a high-angle rescue, they'd be roped off. It's a dangerous thing to do at the best of times. So it sounds simple to pull someone over. One, it's a testament to Bev's level of fitness, as you can see. The second part, it's absolutely selfless to do something like that. When you lean over a rail that's that high to pick someone up, if they're really intent, you can go over with them very easily, which is why usually you're roped off. But Bev didn't have that advantage because there was no time to wait for that type of thing. Bev did call the fire department before she acted to have them come, but there was no time to wait for that type of a rescue. So Bev is being honored here today with a Chief's Commendation for her act of bravery. We previously honored the citizens that were involved. But what Bev did, absolutely selfless thing to do when you can go over the rail just as easy with the individual. But because of her fitness level, like I said, she pulled this lady back. Not only did she do that, but as soon as she did it, she went into the counseling role to talk to her, to switch hats. And that's after such an event that's so full of adrenaline. For someone to do that and switch hats, now you're trying to help this person on the other side of the rail. It's unbelievable. So congratulations to Bev. We have an award for her here, but I just want to congratulate her in front of the commission. So we'll present this to Bev. If she'd like to get a photo, we can do that, but I'd just like to give that to you. This Chief's coin for you. If you want to come up, and we can take a picture back by the flags if you like to get a picture. Come on back.
Well, on behalf of the commission, thank you so much, Chief, for giving us the honor of acknowledging this recognition. That is so well done, and proud to be a member of something like this. And well done, you guys, and to Joe and Brent. Awesome work. Okay, well, let's jump into budgeting, the fun part. Chief.
I'll keep this brief, Mr. Chair. So we are projecting a negative variance at year end related to, largely due to wages and benefits. And as we have done all year, we'll continue to monitor that and report it monthly as we go along.
Are there any questions of the chief on the budget side? Seeing none, let's jump into the Inspector West with the operational services report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you turn to page 9, operational service highlights.
Just a second, just give the new members, did you guys find that page there? Are you good there? Okay, thanks.
Okay. Just a few highlights from patrols here. So first one is patrol members responded to a report of a disturbance at a hotel on Red Cliff Drive. And for a separate incident, Constable Harisic showed up to that event to deal with what he thought was some unruly patrons in a hotel room. When he got there, he actually walked into a robbery that was actively taking place with a firearm. He immediately took action and made the arrest safely without really the benefit of backup because he literally walked into it. So anyways, made the arrest there, and of course, much to the relief of the staff there for sure. The next one is patrol officers respond to a break and enter up on the 1100 block of 6th Avenue Southeast. Upon arrival, K9 attended, made announcements, and 2 people surrendered from within the house and were arrested without incident. And then PSD asked her search the residence, finding no other people inside, and a male was arrested for several prohibited weapons. So this was a secured, boarded up house that people had actually moved into, refused to come out. K9 did a great job of safely, I think once, a number of announcements were made, people didn't come out. Once K9 was there, they popped out pretty quick, and the male party was in possession of several prohibited weapons, brass knuckles, homemade taser, a knife, and he had a weapons prohib. So it ended up being a really good arrest, and we actually had a bail hearing for that one. So, and just moving on down to community support unit on page 10. So the school officers attended Fresh Start to School at Crescent Heights High. So I asked a little bit about this event. So this is an event that they were involved with where several agencies come together at Crescent Heights High. They're there to support families in need, so you could register, and it's making sure that the kids have, everything from backpacks available to making sure that they have all the supports that they may need to start off the school year just before it started. And so our officers attended to that. And one of the officers conducted a CEPTED, or Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design, at Herald School. Adam Gregory did that, and the principal actually sent a note saying what a great job he did there, and really some impact on doing just a simple CEPTED evaluation. Call center, really nothing out of the usual, but I'll draw your attention on page 11 to the downtown patrol unit. We saw numbers in August pretty much stay the same, but in the first 2 categories, but a rapid drop in unwanted persons calls, which is nice. That's sort of, as you can see, the other numbers, they're usually pretty high. These are just folks who are hanging around, maybe interfering with business that the DPU gets called to, so it was good to see a drop in that. I mentioned this in the lunch meeting. Just with regards to our traffic units, or automated traffic enforcement audit was completed, and we passed with flying colors, which was a big relief, really, because there's been so many changes in the guidelines that we had to comply with, everything from marking the vehicles to an audit of our sites and a number of other reporting regulations that we're accountable to. So it was good to get through that first audit with all those new rules in place. And just drawing your attention to one last thing on page 12 with regard to municipal enforcement, homeless encampments. I know there's some interest in that. we saw the numbers drop in July and then pop up just a little bit in August, and I would expect those will begin to dwindle as the months get colder here. So that's all I have from the operations division.
For the benefit of Eleanor and Miles, as you can see, when the reports are given, they kind of just touch on some of the key highlights. That's why you'll get these reports 2 or 3 days in advance. You take the opportunity to read it in detail, and then if you have some questions, highlight them so that you have the opportunity to come back and ask the questions if they didn't touch on those points. But we don't spend the whole time reading line by line the whole report, but you will get that ahead of time. So take the time to read them and then ask questions and that type of thing, okay? And I know it's not fair tonight because you just got the package, but going forward, that's how the process will work, okay? So are there any questions of Inspector West? Marco?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just curious, is that the first step we've done for a school, or have we done others, or?
You know what, that's the first one I recall in recent memory of a school. Usually they're businesses and so forth, so the first of my recollection, yeah.
I'm glad to see that, because I think it's a fantastic program. So for it to branch out into things like schools and, possibly institutional level, other institutions, I think it'll be a good thing for the program. Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a couple, Joe. I noticed on the municipal enforcement section, fingerprinting really jumped up in August. Any, just a demand for fingerprints? We jumped up to 97 from 82 to 80 and 83 the previous 2 months.
I have no explanation for that other than the way fingerprints work is we just sort of move with the ebb and flow of crime. So when we have somebody who's released on a document, they have a fingerprint date, and it's usually about a month down the road. So to be a bit indicative of the crime, actually, they might be a little bit shorter, but they're indicative of some crime that's probably a couple weeks before, but just kind of the regular ebb and flow of those types of things.
And also aggressive dog calls. August jumped up really high from July. There's more people walking their dogs and not feeding them. They're getting aggressive, or?
Yeah, it's kind of odd that there was sort of this dip in a number of things in July. So I don't know if it was stampede time and there was more people, with other activities or out of town, but it kind of returned back to pre-summer numbers there. So, yeah.
Okay, Terry?
Yeah, on that same table, I know you folks have put a priority on these encampments. I'm just looking at the stats. I'm just wondering what constitutes an encampment? Is that just a guy in a blanket, or is it a tent, or?
No,
Just curious.
These ones would be, there'd be some, permanency to the structure. So if you've driven past Riverside Park and there's sort of a tarp between a couple of, wagons, not an encampment, but certainly when we have one where there's a tent set up and somebody's actually,
Right.
got their belongings in it, it looks like they've got food and water, and, those are sort of the encampments that.
Okay, so it's something that they've constructed, kind of,
Yeah,
sort of.
yeah, and it's more than a little more than fleeting, I'll put it to you
Okay.
that way.
No, I was just curious. I'm surprised how many there are. Do you find that a lot of them each month are the same folks?
Yeah, I
or
think.
did we really have 50 different encampments?
No, a
with
lot of
different
them would
people?
be repeats.
Okay.
And there's some favorite spots, not so much, I know we sort of think of the encampments, like if you see a tent pop up in Riverside Park, which shouldn't be happening, but they're along the riverside, along the escarpment above Kingsway, in the Saratoga Park area. Some of them are quite concealed, but we do get complaints about them. And, we go through the protocol, we'll attend, see if it's occupied, first and foremost, if it's occupied or if it's abandoned. If there's good evidence that it's abandoned, we simply have parks come and clean it up. If we believe it's occupied, we try and track people down, and we have actually a notice we'll put on there.
Oh.
You've got so much time to pack up your belongings and move along.
Okay.
And, we'll sort of take things from there.
Has this been more prevalent this year?
You know, I
as
think
opposed to the past?
when I checked the numbers last, I think we were down a little bit from last year, or certainly
Okay.
not an increase. So, but I'd have to check the year-to-year numbers, but nothing out of the usual. Having said that, I think our members are getting more, used to dealing with them, so and I think people are getting a little more used to seeing
You
them.
guys have
as well.
established a protocol, so.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm still amazed at the number of them. Thank you.
yes.
So on that note, Joe, with you got the underpass under the railway, that's now locked up at
yes.
night, right?
That's
So where
right.
does those folks, do they find new places now to hang out?
Yeah, so that's a great point. That could be a bit of a game changer. So I know in the winter, they have accumulated down there during the colder weather. The problem was last year, they started bringing propane tanks and other things down there, which made it a very dangerous environment. So it is going to be locked up. I think they lock it up at about 11 o'clock at night and open it up at 6. The other game changer is they would accumulate, or they'd gather in one of the towers at the Parkade. There's going to be 24/7 security there now. So there could be more displacement, but we're hoping that with some of these measures that it really pressures people to find supports. And we know from our partnership with community housing that there is the availability of housing for all those folks. So hopefully, they'll take advantage of some of those supports.
Sarah?
I don't know if this is for Inspector West or not. The mental health calls for service, who, is that chief? Sorry,
The general stats, I can speak to that.
What
I'm glad to see that they were down in August. I just was curious, when you do get a mental health call for service, is it just an officer that responds, or do we have any other social supports that go with, or are they dispatched later? How does that work?
Well, we'll call in supports. So we've really worked hard at getting our PACT officers, or our police and crisis team workers. So we have the 2 AHS employees who work alongside our officers, and we've really worked hard over the past year to actually get them more and more operational. I just met with AHS about furthering that. So they are getting out in the cars more with our PACT police officers. So when they're available, there's that immediate connection. The PACT officers also review all of those files and see where some folks are at with regard to accessing services and so forth. There is the police, and then there's the crisis team at the hospital. So if we actually make an arrest and we're at the hospital, the crisis team will sometimes attend and make sure that they're connected that way.
And are those 24/7 supports, or if this happens after the hours of 8 and 4?
Yeah, so our PACT is not 24/7. They work basically day shift, and the crisis team is more available. They're at the hospital. I don't know if they're 24/7, but they're quite well staffed there.
Okay, moving on to investigation and support, Inspector Secondiak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of highlights from my area. I wanted to start off with IT, something that we don't focus on often, but it's a section in our service we absolutely couldn't function without in this day and age. It affects everything we do. Everyone's got cell phones now, we all have computers, all the cars have computers in them, so everything we do. And they've been busy with many projects, but one of them is developing a comprehensive IT policy, procedures, and strategy. And a big thing is unmanaged devices, so people with personal cell phones, so they've recently changed it so if you have your own phone, you can only access MHPS through web-based access, so that it's not always popular with our member, but is the safest thing that we can do. You've probably heard lots in the news about ransomware attacks and cyber attacks, and those are often through cell phones or phishing scams where people are clicking on links. So I just wanted to give a shout out to our IT team who are constantly scanning the environment to see what the risks are and modifying our security protocols to keep us safe. So that's good to see. Secondly, I wanted to talk about the criminal investigation section. The first bullet point. So last month, Patrol officers responded to the 400 block of 19th Street Northeast for a weapons complaint. So there were shots fired. Very dynamic, dangerous situation, but our patrol units did an amazing job. K-9 was deployed. We weren't able to locate an offender in the area, but we did put out an immediate media release that this was a targeted offense as soon as we had figured out what was going on. And I can tell you that the major crime section continues to investigate this, but it does speak to the increase of the use of weapons in our community while committing offenses. Of course, we had a big media release from Alert last month with the use of printed 3D firearms, which is concerning. Ghost guns are also topical in Alberta, and that's a gun without serial numbers. They buy parts from all over the internet and then assemble a gun. But I did pull up some of the stats this morning about weapons offenses, so assault with a weapon, and there's several other categories, but they're up substantially. We have 88 this year as opposed to 65 and 64 the year before. So it's an alarming trend that we're noticing. Joe and I and the chief speak every morning about it, and many of our drug offenses, there's weapons involved, so it's something we're going to continue to monitor and hopefully address through patrols and the alert teams. And then lastly, in major crimes as well, I just added this chart for the first time this month about digital forensics, and I really wanted to highlight the use of Grey Key. So you'll see last month we used it 4 times, and that's a software, of course, we were donated for a year. It's quite expensive, but it allows us to enter phones, go into them without a password if we have to. So they do a lot of files every month, approximately 20 files, 18 it looks like last month for cell phone forensics. And again, it's something we're seeing more and more of. There's a lot of criminal offenses occur and they're either recorded on a phone or there's a text message or something to that effect. So great work by our CIS unit on that. Those are really the 3 highlights I wanted to touch on, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Medicine Hat, CIS, wow. That's, Miles.
So you say there's increase in with weapons, especially in drugs. How much of that increase is firearms and how much is other weapons?
I don't have the breakdown, but I can tell you anecdotally, and I can bring that back, there's way more firearms than we've ever seen before. Just about every drug file we touch has a weapon attached to it.
Can you describe what type of firearms you're looking at? You're looking at long gun, handgun?
Yes, all of them. The 3D printed guns we seized recently were all handguns, but it's not uncommon to find long guns, chopped barrels, shotguns, rifles, pistols, everything.
Thank you.
Marco.
Yeah, just really a compliment for Victim Services Unit. I was privy to a impact statement from the Viner Center recently, where they talked about how they have a specific program trying to address and assist people experiencing elder abuse. And they talked a lot about their community partners, and one that was mentioned was the service, and specifically VSU and Astor. And yeah, it was amazing to hear how some of the seniors that are attending these sessions are finding their voice, finding the courage to take steps to end their abuse. So I'm very pleased, somewhat moved actually, that the service is part of that. Thank you.
It's great to hear, and we'll pass that along to our Victim Services Manager. Thank you.
Sarah, you had a question.
2. I'll go back to the weapons quickly. This might be a silly question, but what is the definition of a violent crime? So if it's a weapons, is that automatically a violent crime, or when would someone be charged with a violent crime?
It's funny, we had this discussion perhaps a week or 2 ago about that. But so we use UCR codes in our reporting, and UCR stands for Universal Crime Reporting. So it's anything where there's an injury to there's several offenses, but a firearm offense would be included: assaults, assault causing, assault with a weapon, assault causing bodily harm. There's several of them, sexual offenses, of course. So there's a plethora, a large list of violent offenses, if that armed robbery, those type of things.
So hopefully then, I know Minister Amory spoke recently that there's more investment into the judicial system, more prosecutors, more time, ensuring that these viable violent crime charges stick. So if we can get a few more, hopefully they actually do stick and we can get them locked away.
Absolutely.
Second one was just on the IT. I know we don't talk about it a lot, but it kind of caught my eye when we were talking about the IT data sharing project, interagency data sharing. Do you foresee any barriers with this? Are there issues with policy or privacy?
Yes, undoubtedly there will be, but I know there's lawyers involved in it. We're allowed to share information for law enforcement purposes. There's no problem there, and that's what this is for. Some of the issues we'll run into our record systems. Medicine Hat, we use Versaterm or Versadex. We're the only ones in Alberta, so there's always issues with that. And Edmonton has a niche product, but it's different than Lethbridge's. So there's always integration parts with data sharing and collection once it's automated. But I'm hopeful that we'll be able to work through it because it is a benefit to have provincial information and that we're all on the same page. You can share that information at the touch of a button. So I know our IT manager's been working hard on that.
I would agree. I think it's greatly beneficial, and if there are barriers that we could assist with in policy, or whether it's lobbying to AAPG to change some policy provincially, I would love to support
I
that.
have no doubt the chief will ask you about one in maybe a year. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Brent. Back to the chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have some items there that I won't go through that are in the document that you have. We do want to recognize Constable Rick O'Brien from the RCMP in Coquitlam, BC, who was killed in the line of duty last Friday when executing a search warrant with some other RCMP members. Constable O'Brien was a 7-year member. The RCMP in all his years were in Ridge Meadows Detachment. So you'll notice that our flags are half-mast at MHPS, our building right now, as they are buildings across the country. So just we wanted to recognize him in this forum.
I think we should take a moment of silence for that. So let's just do that, everyone, please. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to bring to your attention, myself, Inspector West, and Inspector Secondiak, we have been, the patrol teams, and they start work every morning, they have a briefing in the building, but we've held a lot of what we call field briefings throughout the summer in the downtown, just as extra visibility. So we'll have that briefing just right outdoors. We've done them in Veterans Park. When there was more issues there, we've had them in Battis Park, right in front of the Circle K on First Street. We've done them right in front of City Hall on the opposite corner from Circle K, and when we're done, we'll move around downtown. So you have a whole lot of cops downtown, and not just patrol officers. We have Brent's folks from Major Crimes and other staff sergeants throughout the building. So we've had quite a contingent out there a lot of mornings this summer, and I think it's good for our citizens that drive by. We've got lots of positive comments about it. We've also had a significant number of extra shifts throughout the summer in the evenings downtown. So we understand our citizens and our business owners are frustrated by what they see downtown, and that's not lost on us because it frustrates us too. So we've invested a lot of time and energy in the last few months looking at that, and there's other strategies we'll be working on, but we've certainly put a lot of effort downtown.
Chief, I just want to ask you a question. I'm going to wear my old hat here. When I was working, I know there's a lot of focus on downtown, but when you have these briefing meetings, would it not be helpful if you did it once in a while, say at Medicine Hat Mall, or I guess I'm being a bit biased, 13th Avenue Co-op parking lot, or in Light Industrial Park, and not every time, but every once in a while to show presence that you guys care for the whole city and not just downtown? Because there was a bit of a perception I was working. Everything is always about downtown. We had a lot of issues, robberies and whatever, break-in entries, but it's always downtown. So would it be worth doing that every once in a while around the city to show the community that you guys, and not that you don't care about it, I know you do, but it's perception.
Yeah, so what we try to do is move around largely where our hotspots are, which tends to be right now downtown.
Right.
So that's where the focus has been. We will, when clusters of issues show up in other places, we'd certainly do that. We don't forget about any part of the city, as you mentioned. So your point's well taken, and as we do see issues crop up around the city, we can move around. There's nothing that stops us. That's why we've picked locations all around where there's issues. So they tend to be focused this summer downtown, because that's what our citizens have been telling us where their concerns are. So, but as there are other issues, we will move about, for sure. The last thing I'd like to mention is just a shout out to our IT section again. They're getting lots of praise here tonight. And Brent is part of this as well. So our patrols folks, we ask them to do, it's always one more thing we're throwing on their plate. It's just always one more thing, one more thing. And we like to have good data and good documentation of issues. So every time they used to be able to go to events a number of years ago, where they could go to an event, but if there's nothing happening when they got there, it could just be concluded. But we lose data when we go to those events, so we had them reporting on those. But again, it's just one more thing taking their time. So it's just a homegrown IT solution, and it's kind of, the colloquial term used, it's Patrol Buddy, and it's actually an amazing thing. So it just makes, it's an efficiency for our patrol members when they do go to an event where something has happened, but it's relatively minor, where they don't need full reporting, but we don't want to lose data on who was involved, where it was. Patrol Buddy is an app they can use where we still capture all the data, everything, who was involved, but it's far faster and they can do it quicker instead of full reporting where it's not needed. It's just an efficiency for them, so we get the data we need that helps us. They get to do it faster. So it's just a great efficiency for them, and maybe I'm not doing it justice, and Brent might want to explain it more, but it's just something our IT folks came up with. They brainstormed, did it here in our time, so the cost is minimal, because it's a homegrown solution, but it's something that's very helpful to our patrols, and we don't lose the data we need, so we can do the reporting we need. They can do it faster. So it's a real cool thing for them that they can do right in the car and saves them a lot of time. Did I explain that well enough, Brent?
Can we license that?
Close enough, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
Can we license that?
I think we did trademark it. I believe we did. Yeah, so it's, it'll probably catch on all, or we'll start selling it. But it's, right now, it's just a homegrown solution for our members to do their work faster. So it's just one less thing they can do. Still doing it, but faster. So it's real nice for them.
Awesome. Sarah?
They could do the innovation pitch in Peel next year.
There you go. It's things like that that people think about. They realize it's, believe me, I couldn't do the work that our IT manager put into this. He sat there and wrote code in his office, and it's very confusing to me. I couldn't do it, but he's able to do it and make sense of it. So something as simple as that works for our members, and ultimately it's good for our citizens because they get to the next thing faster. But we don't lose data in the meantime, so it's pretty important for both sides.
Marco?
One other question, is that the same app that allows them to take photos that automatically attach to the file, or is that something different?
That'd be different. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Step one at a time there, Marco.
We do. That's part of Axon through the body worn video functions that we have. It's Axon Capture, I think I heard the guys say. So again, not all agencies in the province have, like, we have partial rollout of body worn video already, so we're down those roads. And the rest of the agencies are now, Calgary has it as well, but other agencies are now looking at that, so we're already down that road, so it's good.
So speaking of body worn cameras, where are we at? Not all our officers have it yet, do they?
Nope. So we have, I believe it's in the 20s, the number of cameras, correct? So most folks that go during the day will have them. So during the election, the province spoke about legislating that all police agencies would have a full rollout of that. So we're still working through that and working through what the costs are and working with the province on it. It's a little easier for us because we're down the road already, so it's not as difficult. And some bigger agencies that don't have it, it's a lot of work for them because they're just starting from the ground floor. But we are already involved with Axon on that since 2017, I believe. So we're well down the road. It won't be as hard of a lift for us the rest of the way, but there is cost to it. So we're still working through what that looks like.
The government was talking about handing out some money for that. That hasn't come.
Not at this time. We're still
yet.
working through it. We've had discussions about it with the minister at the Safety of Our Cities conference in Edmonton last week. Still working our way through that. It's easier for a Medicine Hat or for a Calgary because we're down the road. bigger deal for Edmonton, Lethbridge, and others that haven't started yet. So because of the discrepancies, it's a bit of work to get everybody leveled out. So there is some work to it, but we're working on it.
So Edmonton is still zero? They don't have any?
They don't have them as of yet.
Or Calgary?
Calgary does.
They have some.
They have, yeah.
And Lethbridge is not?
Lethbridge does not, to my understanding. I believe it's just, they do.
Okay,
And so, yeah, it's Medicine Hat, Calgary is who has it rolled out
okay.
right
good,
now.
thank you. That's it?
That's it from me.
Any question, or Marco?
Yeah, again, back to the body worns. Are you like more focusing your attempts for like figuring out funding for the storage? Because I know the capital cost for the gear isn't that crazy. It's the storage that's the crush.
Yeah, it's so, there is, the costs, we've worked out our cost that we've provided. Storage, I'll tell you the two things that are the biggest issue. Storage is probably capital is not the biggest deal in the world. Storage is more. The bigger issue is the vetting of the videos. Because there's a lot of video we then have that we have to store, but generally that'll end up somewhere, be it at the Crown for a prosecution. So that takes time. So the police chiefs in the province, we don't believe that we should be vetting those videos internally, because technically we're manipulating evidence if we do that. We shouldn't do that. Evidence should go to the Crown and that should happen, but we're still working through those things. Having human beings to do that work right now in the Medicine Hat Police Service with about a half rollout, 2 people are doing that off the side of their desk that have other duties. If we go full rollout, that's gonna mean some more work for 1 or 2 people. So there's a consideration around that, what the human cost is. Storage is the other issue, but capital's not the end of the world. The cameras also have a certain life cycle. So, but, we've had a good experience with it so far, but there is those considerations that we've made known.
What is the life of a camera? Because you came back, 2017 was our first year. Are they still in operation?
They are, but they're at end of life, so we're
6 years.
replacing them
Yeah.
soon, yeah.
Terry?
The, would have been a better question during the finance piece, I guess, but just looking at the budget summary, we were all amazed when this new revenue source parachuted in called Sterling a few years ago. I'm always interested in things that make money. What's the way ahead there? I see that you're up over the budget estimates for this year, but is this something that continues to grow, or do you see that fade, dissipating going forward, or is that something that's gonna be a good piece for us going
I
ahead?
think it's a growth business. More and more, the way our world is, everybody requires these type of checks for lots of different things, so that's not going away. That'll just probably continue to grow. So right now, it's a 50-50 partnerships with ourselves and the Medicine Hat Fire Service.
Right.
So we're working together on that. The current contract is this year, and I believe it ends after next year. So we've met with Fire about that already, how that looks going forward, and still continuing on. We'll update you on that in the future, what the future looks like in it.
Okay.
So yeah, it is a growth. I don't see that going away. I think
The
it'll
numbers
continue that
reflected
way.
here are the police 50 share?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I will tell you, there's a lot of work goes into it, though.
That's what I was kind of wondering
It's
as
not
well.
like it's free.
If
A
it
lot of-
grows, does that become a problem other than extra revenue?
It can mean that more human beings are needed to process that work, because someone's doing it.
Yep.
We do as much, we encourage the online request for these things, because it just saves time for someone coming into our front counter. So it's less time. So we encourage, it's actually slightly cheaper if someone comes into or they do it online and submit it that way. We give a better price for that because it saves us to work
Right.
face to face. So it isn't free. A lot of work goes into that in the background. Someone's doing the work to do all these checks. They have to be done. And they can't be automated at this point. So a lot of work goes in.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments, questions? None? Thank you, Chief.
Well,
Okay, moving along to action, community consultation, we're good. Upcoming meetings. The next open meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, October the 18th, 6 o'clock, following in November 15th at 6 o'clock. And with that, Thank you to the chief, Inspector West, and Inspector Secondiak for your reports, and I declare the meeting adjourned.